Okay, I'll do it, but this one is a wild ride, so buckle the fuck up. So Found is about this 12-year-old kid named Marty and his older brother Steve. And right off the rip, Marty finds out that his brother Steve is a serial killer. And the way he finds that out is he goes in Steve's closet and finds a bowling bag, and in the bag is a severed human head. And every week he keeps going back and finding a new person's head in the bag, and they're all African American women. One day Marty gets into a fight at school with a kid named Marcus who happens to be black. Later when he comes home that day, he sneaks into Steve's room again, but this time the bag is empty. But this time he also puts on Steve's gas mask that he has in his room. Steve ends up coming back and catching him and yelling at it, but then Marty explains to him how he got bullied by this kid Marcus at school. One day Marty's having a sleepover with his friend David, and they end up finding this movie in Steve's room called Headless. And they go to watch it, and it's just this like super dark, sadistic movie about this guy who is beheading people. They had gone to the video store earlier, by the way, and the guy had told him that this movie Headless had been stolen. So now Marty understands that his brother stole it and is getting inspiration from this movie for committing his crimes. So Marty gets super uncomfortable, and David basically calls him a baby. And is like, I don't want to be friends with you. Nobody wants to be friends with you because you're a fucking loser, basically. So fucking Marty here is like, oh yeah, well come look at this. And sneaks David into Steve's room to show him the bag which contains yet another severed head. And whose head is it? It's Marcus's, the kid who was bullying Marty at school. So David leaves, and at this point Steve realizes that Marty knows his secret. And at this point he confesses to Marty that he only kills black people because he's a fucking racist. But he promises Marty that he'll never hurt him. Aw. One day while Marty's at church with his mother, he ends up getting into a fight with this kid Trevor who's bullying him. And instead of just letting it happen like he did with Marcus, he ends up just beating the shit out of Trevor instead. At this point, it's clear to us that Marty is becoming increasingly more violent and disturbed. And when Marty goes home, his father starts hitting him over the fight, at which point Steve intervenes and starts hitting his dad and pushing their mother, resulting in his father kicking Steve out of the house. So that night, Steve's outside and ends up calling Marty out to try and make a plan to kind of get back into the house. But their father comes out and catches him, and Steve hits him over the head with a shovel. And while he's unconscious, Steve then goes inside after their mother. Marty comes in and finds Steve about to SA their mother. And he tries to stop him, but Steve knocks him out. I can't show pictures of this next part because I'll get banned. But when he wakes up, he's tied to his own bed, bound and gagged. And just hears the screams of his mother. Steve comes in his gas mask and grabs a machete and proceeds to brutally murder their parents while Marty listens helplessly. And then Steve comes back in victorious, covered in their parents' blood. Marty starts crying and screaming to the best of his ability because he's gagged. And Steve's like, I'll explain everything, please stop crying. But Marty doesn't, and it makes Steve rageful. Now it's morning time, and we see Steve walk out of the house completely covered in his parents' blood still. And we switch to Marty still bound and gagged to the bed, this time surrounded by the bodies of his dead parents. And we're left to wonder if anyone's ever going to find him.